the corrupt Federal Reserve currency. And so they went into their little jury, and they say here, he's a terrorist. And they go, okay, 22 years in prison as a terrorist for 14 years putting out gold and silver coins. And again, we covered this at the time, Wall Street Journal, Associated Press. In fact, I was shocked. They rarely get something right. They went and looked at the code and law and said, this guy didn't break the law. They don't care. They don't care. So Bernard von Notehouse is our guest. How big of a wake-up call has this been, them coming out and saying you're a terrorist?
It's been a huge wake-up call, Alex, because the people have really been shocked by that statement that you read earlier by Ann Tompkins. And what's amazing is that they had that statement whiz-bang ready to go when the verdict came in. It was like almost they knew that I was going to be found guilty because, the guilty verdict came in at about 10 o'clock in the morning, and they issued that in the early afternoon. I mean, boy, that was awfully fast work for the federal government.
Well, they're good people, Fast and Furious and Agent Orange, and the government grows the opium in Afghanistan on record, but they're good people. Now, continuing, if you've got the contact info for the judge, for people that have been involved with Liberty Dollar, especially to contact the court as is customary and to make comment on sentencing, how do folks do that?
Well, actually, Alex, that's a very important and critical part of the whole process that I've been through, and of course that's the sentencing. The government's trying to get the judge to sentence me to 22 years in prison. So we've been asking people if they don't have to have been involved with Liberty Dollar. Maybe they just want to take a stand against the tyranny that the government is saying that we did, saying that the Liberty Dollar was counterfeit. So if people wanted to take a stand, they should write to the Honorable Richard Voorhees. That's Voorhees. And he's a district court judge. He's in the Western District of North Carolina. The address itself is 250 Charles R. Jones, Jonas, Federal Building. I think you could just send it to the federal courthouse and it would get to him. The street address is 401 West Trade Street. That's in Charlotte, North Carolina, 28202. Or they could just send me a quick email, Bernard@Liberty Dollar, and ask for the information, and I'd be happy to reply to that, But, it doesn't take a long letter, Alex. This is really a show of force in terms of people in the community that support Liberty Dollar and the ideals it represents. In other words, honest gold and silver money.
You know what's funny about the feds? They're not happy enough to have stolen all the gold and silver and copper. Turned out you had bigger supplies than you were even supposed to back it all up.
Yes.
That's not enough for them. That they want you to get the maximum sentence of 22 years. I tell you, that's some bad karma these folks are piling up for themselves.
Well, they obviously are trying to bury me. There's no doubt about that. I mean, as you pointed out earlier, there are hundreds of other currencies out there in a lot of different communities across the United States. The Ithaca has been out there since 1991, so this is simply nothing new. But the idea of having a local currency, a private currency that's 100% backed up by gold and silver, that is what I think really scared the hell out of our favorite federal government out.
Well, yeah, no, because they work for foreign banks. This isn't the federal government. They're the banksters, and you were one of the biggest outfits out there, and so they just made you a political prisoner, or they're about to try to do that. And I guess that's, NDAA. I mean, you're an American terrorist, and they say so you disappear now.
Yeah, I'm already qualified for the MDAA, Alex. I mean, I've already been declared a terrorist. They might come and get me at any time. I could hear them knocking on the door,
And they sit there like it's a police state comic book or something, where in the future in America, he issued their own currency and were arrested. I want to do a few more minutes with you on the other side with any points you want to make in case this is one of the last times we talk to you before you disappear into the labyrinth of the giant prison system, the biggest in the world, run by our narcotics trafficking, murdering, criminal so-called government.
We're on the march. The empire.
You know, I could make a joke out of it, but it's not funny because it's actually happening. Don't you think for a minute, you domestic terrorist, that you're going to set up a coin company and issue your own gold and silver coins. Don't think for a minute you're going to set up a commemorative mint. Sure, there's hundreds of companies doing it, and there's hundreds more that have their own private local currencies, and it's totally legal. They don't care. The feds have got juries that are kept juries, that they kept seated, that will convict anybody in America for anything. They will do whatever they are told. 98% conviction rate. And then they'll have U.S. attorneys come out, and no, they're not writing for, you know, a Hollywood script of a remake of 1984 or The Running Man or some other dystopic THX 1138. No, they're serious. Attempts to undermine the legitimate currency of this country are simply a unique form of domestic terrorism. The Federal Reserve's got its name on all the money. It is counterfeit. Didn't have it till 1913. They've used it to debase the country. Kennedy tried to reissue Lincoln greenbacks and was killed. All of this is going on. All of this is happening. And they sit there with a straight face talking about Bernard von Nothaus the same way they should be talking about themselves. I mean, you've heard all the constitutional lawyers I've had on saying Obama signing NDAA is treason. I mean, real treason, not just throwing that name around. But of course, the tyrants are telling us that we're the bad men. Attempts to undermine the legitimate currency of this country are simply a unique form of domestic terrorism, U.S. Attorney Tompkins said in announcing the verdict. The FBI put this out as a press release. They want to scare us. All these forms of anti-government, see, none of Homeland Security is about Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda works for them on record. While these forms of anti-government activities do not involve violence, they are every bit as insidious, secret, the TV ads he had running, and represent a clear and present danger to the economic stability of this country, she added. We are determined to meet these threats through infiltration, disruption, and dismantling of organizations which seek to challenge the legitimacy of our democratic form of government. I thought the government was overthrowing the Constitution and Bill of Rights. I thought that's what was happening. So he's facing sentencing coming up next month, 22 years in prison, and just like the feds sent advisors into Illinois and to the state, and they all went down last year in that case where the guy filmed cops towing his cars away and stuff, Mr. Allison. And they actually put briefs in and said, we want him to serve life in prison, yes. And the judge went, you know what, I'm going to dismiss this. But if he wouldn't have dismissed it, that state jury, that they think it's good to put somebody in prison. They go in there and they get off on it, and the cops come in and pat it, and the prosecutor pats them on the head, and they go, who do we screw up in prison? And they're like, don't worry, we're going to put some innocent people in there. And they all get real excited. You think I'm joking? I remember when a listener called me, and we're going to Mr. Nothaus, then your calls, Kelly Rushing in Lyon County, Kentucky. This is about 8 years ago now. And he said, Mr. Jones, I'll send you the newspaper clipping. I'm facing 3 counts, 3 years apiece of terroristic threats. I gave a state police officer road to tyranny. They're charging me for that, but also the Ron Paul speech on there. I put that on. I'm charged with both. And so he faxed me and then mailed me the newspaper, and I saw the judge. I called the judge at home. Back then I was naive 8 years ago. I thought, come on. So I get the judge on the phone, and I go, well, I'm not going to get too much into the case, but the newspaper, you're actually not mistrialing somebody facing 9 years in jail for giving a cop a video? And he said, I'm not going to talk to you about it, but yes, it's going to court. So then they had the hearing, and the cop comes in and says, he gave me that video, and it's anti-government. And the judge says, we find that threatening. You will convict, and the jury didn't. And it was in the news. But they actually wanted to put him in jail for going, officer. In fact, the cop even testified, this is important for your future and your family's future. And they said that was a threat, mentioning family. But Yes, and they all sat there with a straight face. I mean, these are kook, cult, demons, hardcore evil. I mean, these people are flaming scum. I mean, just wild, crazy, dangerous people. Just like the Nazis, the Soviets, all of them. Pol Pot killing 31% of Cambodia, murdering anybody that could read or write or wore glasses. You're like, why'd he do that? Because he's a flaming loon. They like it. You like water skiing, enchiladas, hanging out with your family, mountain biking. They like black uniforms and torturing children. They do it all over the world. I'm sorry. Bernard, you know what? It makes me totally... You're the one facing it. I know I'll be facing it, too. They'll trump something up. It doesn't matter, though. I've already heard them bad. And we're going to... But anyways, they're the terrorists, and they know it. And you know what? I mean, I hope people contact the judge. But I mean, the fact that the judge wouldn't even mistrial this to begin with. I mean, what do you think of this judge overall? I know you've tried to say nice things in the past, throw yourself on his godly mercy, our little tyrant leader. But I mean, what are you facing here? 22 years. What do you do to his lordship?
Well, actually, I think the judge was straight up in the trial, and I think that he may have been shocked, as I was, in terms of the verdict. The judge, I think, presided over a fair and honest trial, but I think that the jury certainly erred very seriously. I mean, they were only out less than an hour. You can read different opinions and different articles, but trust me, Alex, I was there. I was watching the clock. And it was just about an hour, a little less than an hour, that the jury was out. And this is on 3 very serious federal offenses, counterfeiting, obviously. And they found me guilty on all 3 counts in less than an hour. I mean, they couldn't even read the jury instructions. Jury instructions was 72 pages. They couldn't even have read the jury instructions in an hour. And, of course, if they had read the jury instructions, then they would have known that we made an extremely strong defense in terms of no mens rea. There was no criminal...
No. All these juries care about, the federal ones, is the cash they get on the side. It's been proven in many cases. But in others, it's just they're mentally ill authority worshipers, and all they care about is the satisfaction of seeing you convicted and having the prosecutor nod at them with a little psycho goody look. And it's that little psycho enjoyment. So they go back to their miserable houses, their miserable lives, their scum-filled existence. It's just all about abusing good people. It's a demonic celebration.
Well, I really don't know much about the jury, to be honest with you, because I don't know much about North Carolina. But I do know that the majority of jurors were unemployed. And so, obviously, they didn't care about taking time. I mean, they were getting paid.
No, that's why they're lazy scum. Oh, yeah, a lot of us they're just lazy. Exactly. Oh, just prison. Nah, scum.
Well, whatever they did, they certainly surprised me, because I thought that I was going to be found not guilty. I wasn't even planning on staying the whole day, but as it turned out, they immediately launched into the forfeiture hearing. I mean, within 15 minutes after I was found guilty, they convened a hearing to forfeit all of the... Now, we're talking about 9 tons here, Alex.
And this is people's property on record.
Saying that we did, saying that the Liberty Dollar was counterfeit. So if people wanted to take a stand, they should write to the Honorable Richard Voorhees. That's Voorhees. And he's a district court judge. He's in the Western District of North Carolina. The address itself is 250 Charles R. Jones. That I was going to be found guilty because, the guilty verdict came in at about 10 o'clock in the morning, and they issued that in the early afternoon. I mean, boy, that was awfully fast work for the federal government.
Well, they're good people. Fast and Furious and Agent Orange, and the government grows the opium in Afghanistan on record, but they're good people. Now, continuing, if you've got the contact info for the judge, for people that have been involved with Liberty Dollar, the corrupt Federal Reserve currency. And so they went into their little jury, and they say here, he's a terrorist. And they go, okay, 22 years in prison as a terrorist for 14 years putting out gold and silver coins. And again, we covered this at the time, Wall Street Journal, Associated Press. In fact, I was shocked. They rarely get something right. They went and looked at the code and law and said, this guy didn't break the law. They don't care. They don't care, especially to contact the court as is customary and to make comment on sentencing. How do folks do that?
Well, actually, Alex, that's a very important and critical part of the whole process that I've been through, and of course that's the sentencing. The government's trying to get the judge to sentence me to 22 years in prison. So we've been asking people if they're... they don't have to have been involved with Liberty Dollar. Maybe they just want to take a stand against the tyranny that the government is...
So Bernard von Notehouse is our guest. How big of a wake-up call has this been, them coming out and saying you're a terrorist?
It's been a huge wake-up call, Alex, because the people have really been shocked by that statement that you read earlier by Ann Tompkins. And what's amazing is that they had that statement whiz-bang ready to go when the verdict came in. It was like almost